Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Susan. How are
Hi,
you?
hi, Kate. I'm well. I mean,
It's funny. Yeah,
I'm
it's funny to meet you
pandemic
here.
well. Yeah.
Good. Yes.
It's good to see you. Should we tell the people that we actually live in the same building? I mean, I just did, but that's
I
the funny
mean,
thing.
I was going to keep that a secret, but
Oh,
that's fine. That's
oh,
fine. I
okay.
wanted to be like a little bit more legit. Like, I just know someone as cool as you. Not that you live in the same building as me, but that's cool. I also didn't want to forget to mention at the beginning of this that you really enjoy questions. So I'm welcoming everyone to ask questions all the way throughout.
Yeah.
Awkward is best,
Oh, yeah,
and
the
I'll
more
ask
awkward
them
the
at the
better.
end.
Let's go to places I don't want to. I mean,
Okay,
yeah, let's get the audience disrupting. I mean, let's just make it
absolutely,
a team effort. Yeah.
absolutely. So this is episode number 5. I'm
Yep.
really excited. I told a little secret before I added you on. I'm not sure if you were watching, but I do have a secret, I don't know, dream or whatever you would call it, that I thought I would maybe be a stand-up comedy writer or comedian performer one day, but I'm terrified. So great segue into talking about disruption because
Mm-hmm.
it scares the
Yes.
shit out of me. So
Yep.
tell me, what does disruption mean to you?
Well, before I answer that, I'd just like to call out that truth and that it is harrowing. Stand-up comedy is one of the scariest
Horrifying.
things. Yeah, honest to God, every time, Kate, every time when I'm standing backstage, I'm waiting in the wings, I really do feel like I'm about to jump off a cliff. Like it really never does get easier. I think you get better at like using that energy and believing in yourself. But it is fucking scary. And you do have to have a certain level um, or a certain need for approval and attention to do it. Okay, let's just call that out right now.
Okay. Okay.
So what is disruption to me?
Yeah.
I think the best way to answer that is I think it's just like calling out bullshit. I think it's pointing out the truth. And like I've watched all of your episodes so far, and I watched your most recent guest, right? So she was calling out the bullshit, right? She was pointing out the truth of white
Yeah.
supremacy for
Yeah.
centuries, right? So she was talking about the truth that white people are shitty to pretty much everybody,
Yeah.
including, of course, indigenous people. Okay. And then I think before that, I think the episode before that, you had that woman who called out the truth. She was calling bullshit that the penis has always been just far more important than the vagina.
Far more important, if the only important thing, because the vagina was like a mystery
Yeah.
until,
And therefore not researched,
yeah.
not cared about. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all been about the penis. So, I mean, I think that's the through line is like, I think every guest you're going to have on, and I've watched it so far, leading up to this episode, is calling out bullshit, pointing out the truth. And I think that's disruption. I
Yeah.
think that's it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Why do we feel this need to cover up the truth and hide the truth and keep everything so, comfortable for everybody? Disruption is discomfort, but it's where the real shit is.
Well, paradoxically, if I could just use that word right now,
Oh, I like that.
don't want to show off, but I know multiple syllable words. But it's like you say, yeah, it's discomfort, but I don't know about you, but nothing feels better to me than the truth,
Agreed.
right? I think when we get all, sucked into, caught up and drawn into collective belief systems, these so-called, paradigms, these concepts, these age-old ideas, I think that's where more discomfort
Oh
lives.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally
Anyway.
agree. So would you consider yourself, like, do you believe you've always been a disruptor? Because you grew up in a small town, right? You didn't have
Yeah,
that in your bio.
Kitchener Waterloo. I mean, smallish.
And so you're going to theater school. Everybody's like, what the hell?
Yeah, you know what? I guess my very first moment of really realizing that I was a disruptor was, okay, at the end of my theater program, there was this tradition that your main professor would sit down with you and kind of have this like graduation interview where you would talk about kind of your career goals and things like that, going, where it's headed now that you're graduating this theater
Yeah.
program. And so I sat down with this lady and I told her that I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And I swear I don't know if she actually shat herself, but you could just see like the despair, the disappointment, like kind of, you could just, see her wheels turning, like, where did we go wrong? She had so much promise. No, I didn't. I was a shitty actor. No, honestly, like every time I was in any kind of play, any kind of scene in theater school, I was going for the laughs. In fact, at one point, a professor of mine threatened to like tape my mouth if I mugged to the audience again or tried to get the laugh out of the scene that wasn't even funny, right? So he was frustrated with my obviously burning truth or my burning desire to entertain
Yeah.
rather than act. I think that was the truth that I was disruptive about when I was leaving Waterloo is, hold on, I want to be the author of the funny line as much as the deliverer of the funny line. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Toronto and I'm going to get into stand-up comedy. And she was like, well, that's all the time we have today, Susan. We wish you well.
Yes, we wish
But
you
like,
well.
I was very inspired by, certain artists that would be, more like doing one-woman shows, like Sandra Seamus. I read her collection of one-woman shows when I was doing my theater program. It's a signature show called My Boyfriend's Back. There's going to be laundry, and there's two other one-woman shows included in that book. And I just ate it up and I went, that's what I want to do. That's my truth.
And wasn't it pretty, like at that point, wasn't it relatively rare for female comedians to make it? It was more like a male dominated, which I probably still is, right?
Okay, I'm not that old.
like 300 years ago when you got you threw that out there.
I'm a little younger than Phyllis Diller here, okay? No, I mean, you're right. So I started comedy in the early 2000s. And I mean, while I believe we've come a bit of a way, of course it's, it was a boys' club. I think it very much still is. But yeah, I would say and that's one of the reasons I left comedy is I really didn't feel at home. It wasn't my truth. I didn't like the vibes.
Okay, so tell me about that, because you talked about that before. And what the hell, how did you leave comedy, go into HR? What happened?
Yeah, so yeah, of course I worked the clubs here in Toronto. I did, a lot of open mic nights and started to get actual kind of gigs and
was that terrifying? Was it terrifying to
totally.
Yeah.
And in fact it really wrecked me with a lot of anxiety. Because I wasn't very good. I mean, you're never very good at the beginning. I mean, I don't know if there's any comedian who can say they started out strong, that they had it figured out and just won the crowds over immediately. No. I think it's let's normalize that for a second. I think it's just very natural to really be kind of, shitty at the beginning. And so I had promise, I had timing, I had, kind of that showmanship. I could kind of hold court. I had the stage presence, but I don't think my material was all that very good, as it is like that in the beginning. So I felt like, I don't know, I had a lot of self-doubt, right, naturally. But then I also just had this pervading feeling that I didn't belong. That's all I can tell you, is it wasn't my truth. I'm everybody else is making friendships and they look like they were having fun. I was just in this personal hell. I mean, I love the craft, I love the art, but I hated everything else about, the comedy club culture in the industry. So, because I was kind of not living my truth, I actually wound up dealing with a lot of high grade anxiety and depression. It got to the point where I really couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't put one foot in front of the other. So, stand-up comedy is hard enough when you're feeling, your best.
I was going to say, yeah.
So imagine really like also dealing with mental illness at the time.
Yeah.
So at one point I just had to like, wave the white flag.
Because
Like
isn't a big part of it is like the getting the laugh and like getting that recognition. And then so you're disruptive going and doing this career that's terrifying, and then you're looking for something that you're not getting back. So people aren't laughing. You don't feel like you fit in.
Okay, there was a lot of like very interesting things. Like, I remember my style being very different than other people. Like this one guy, Richard, who I was friendly with, he said, "You know what, kid? You're not really yuck yucks. You're more like Massey Hall, right? Like I was monologuing. I was
Okay.
I wasn't a style that was I think effective for a comedy club culture. Like comedy club cultures, like they're there for a good time. They've been drinking. Like it's got to be quick. There's got to be a setup and a punch really, really quickly. It's almost like think of it as sprinting. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I write more like a marathoner. And so that was another reason my truth and the comedy club culture wasn't doing well. And so
Yeah.
I've always, people define depression and anxiety a lot. They've got different, perceptions of it. My perception of it is it's a truth unacknowledged. Anytime you're battling mental illness, I really do think you're pushing down something.
Yeah.
There's a truth not being acknowledged.
Yeah.
I don't mean to simplify because God knows I've been there. I don't mean to simplify it in the way of just saying it's that and that only.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's always something like that going on.
Well, I love that you shared that because it's a huge coaching principle as well, that any kind of blockage or anything that's happening is you not living aligned with your values. So whatever it is, it's you pushing down something or living a life that doesn't feel truthful.
Nothing feels better than the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
okay. So you're pushed to it, like you're sort of kind of leave the industry, you go and work in HR, which I can't imagine anything, sorry for anyone who's in HR, but anything worse or less aligned with who you are as a person.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, things were so goddamn bad. Like I just could not even think to go on stage. So I quit. And my girlfriend at the time, her mother was director of HR in the Ontario government. Nancy, God love her. She'll always be a pivotal person in my life. Nancy thought I would be fun to have around at the office. So right? I'm totally unqualified. She hands me a contract, right? Temporary contract to come in and work. So I show up in this human resources office. And of course, those HR bitches, they know that there was no competition for the position. So I was hated when I first arrived, right? They knew there was nepotism involved. They knew I was not qualified. And so there was a disruption there for sure. I mean,
slightly.
So I basically had to go in and you read the room really quickly and go, holy shit, they hate me. And so what I did for the first, I guess, year or so was I won them over. I just thought, oh my God, I need to win these people over, which was a tough job because I still mentally wasn't like, it took me a while to heal and get myself back on my feet.
And when you were going, like when you were working there, were you thinking like, this is temporary, I'm going to go back, or maybe this is my life?
Man. Okay. So I just felt completely lost. Yeah. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say I called my mother every day from my cubicle, right? I'd be like, Mom, like, what the hell is going on? I don't belong here. Like I'm so lost. Like, this is it. Like, Jesus, this is never going to make sense. I'm done. Like, and what did your mom say at the age of 27?
Yeah. Because your mom probably knew and saw in you something, right? Like so if you're saying you're probably a disruptor from forever, what did your mom say?
Well, yeah, sure. My mom's always believed in me. She's always thought, oh, you're going to find your way. Like you're talented, don't worry. But also, this is the thing. She was in a very, very spiritual process at that point, right? She was deep into a process that was helping her to become more intuitive and like talk to the other side, that's a whole other story. But in that process of working on her channeling, I know this is really going wild right now. Stay with me, Kate. So she was going through this huge like spiritual kind of reinvention, and she was like reading all these spiritual self-help books. You know, she was immersed in it, and I was getting there too with her influence. But so she would just say to me, "Oh, Susan, just surrender. Allow life to happen. Trust the process." And I'd just be like, on the phone thinking, fuck this. Yeah. What do you mean everything's going to be fine? Like trust the process, right? So she's trying to like get me all zen and it was, quite the shit show. I'm just frantic. And then she's all, being Deepak Chopra on the other end. So,
so what was so you talked about being asked to do a presentation for work. 'Cause obviously at this point, like I'm so interested in people's journey because even if you identify as a disruptor from a young age, which I think you did, and I think we need to share your coming out story with your dad because it's amazing. But even if you identify like that at a young age, it feels like everyone goes through a period of self-doubt or weirdness where you get a job working for the government in HR and you're just like, what the fuck is happening with my life? And then somehow you come out of the other side. There's some kind of, so you did this presentation, it went well. What was the thing that was like, okay, I'm going to just take this leap. Like, this is not my life.
Yeah. So, what was interesting is in all my, feeling lost, this one day, my colleague at the time, Janice, you got to love the HR names. Hey, we got Nancy, we got Janice, Debbie, the gang. Anyway, so yeah. Janice was organizing.
They loved you by now.
I guess they were definitely seeing what I had to offer. And yes, perhaps I was creating some relationships, but they were then saying, okay, you know what? She used to do comedy. Let's get her to, create and deliver a funny presentation all about wellness. So, at first, my instinct was to say no, because, right, I was still fresh out of comedy. Like I was not exactly the poster child for wellness. And the thing was I was like, oh my God, I have a chance to stand on stage again. All right. And so I said yes. And it was a huge hit. Everyone really liked it. And what happened was I started to get phone calls and emails from different parts of the Ontario government asking me to come to their event, their conference, and deliver my funny presentation about wellness. One thing led to another. I started to get emails from external organizations like outside. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll come and do it. Like,
wow.
Just, hashtag conflict of interest. It's fine. And so one thing led to another. One day, Janice, now she was my boss, she called me into her office and said, Susan, you've got to decide now. Like, are you a speaker or do you work here? Because there's so many absentees on your record that corporate is now wondering if we actually need this position. So I had to choose. And so I went into an empty office. I called my mom crying. And of course, spiritual Kathy, or as I call her, Chatty, spiritual Chatty was like, Susan, don't you see? You are being summoned. Life is summoning you now to go and talk to the people. And like, okay. So I did. I took the leap of faith and I left. And so that was 2008.
Which in and of itself is so disruptive because you're leaving a great secure job with a pension and all of that, and you're jumping off and being like, I'm going to take this leap of faith.
Well, yeah. I mean, the irony was, I would say like a few months before that, I was offered a full-time position, right? Like I had been renewing my temporary contract over and over again for 5 years. And then they offered me the full-time permanent position. And that's major. That's major in the government. They call it the golden handcuffs. And so I sat there and grappled with it, right? Like, hey, you don't have to worry about really like finances for the rest of your life, or you could leave now
and worry about finances for a while. maybe.
for a while, for definitely a while. Anyway, so, but nothing feels better than the truth. And so
Were you
I really,
terrified? Were you
yes,
like,
yes,
so what was
absolutely
the
terrified.
thing? What was the thing that was like, okay, I have to make this decision?
Um, I don't know if anyone out there has ever had this feeling, or maybe you've had this feeling, Kate. You can't not do it.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I knew there was going to be more discomfort staying than kind of answering the call,
Yeah.
following my heart, and going after really what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
Because I do think I am meant to do that in my life more than HR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard to believe, but yeah. So I just answered the call, and I think
Yeah.
there's
And that to me is the sort of epitome of disruption, is like, it's already in you. And it's like and it's something we'll talk about at the end, but just like, how do you make sure you answer it? How do you not say no to it? And, what is the difference between you taking that leap and saying, oh, I didn't really have a choice? Because some people wouldn't. Some people would take the safer.
And I mean, I understand. I didn't have children. God, did I even have a partner at that point, really? Like oh God, I'm getting fuzzy on the timeline now. Oh God, was I married? Was I divorced? Who knows? But the thing is I just felt like it was worth,
Yeah.
just, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do this. What's the
Just
worst
doing
that
it.
can happen?
And so so your self-help addiction, did that start? What period of your life did that start in?
Yeah, so when I was in the shits with the
Yeah.
depression and anxiety, I started, being a seeker. I gobbled up every bloody self-help book there was, thanks to my mom's influence. She was, she was giving me her hand-me-downs, and then of course I started buying my own.
Yeah. Because
No,
you are the expert on self-help books, the journey, and you've written these 3 books on your own. And so, did that help you?
yeah. That's the thing about self-help. If it does anything, it just kind of like, I don't know, it's like a hit of dopamine. It is like, it's like a little boost. I mean, who the hell knows if you're going to remember anything in the book? I don't even know if you're going to apply anything to it.
Yeah.
Right. Apply anything
Yeah.
from it to your life. What I mean to say, and that doesn't matter. Hey, I mean, sure, but when you're reading it, it is like, I don't know. It's like a drug.
You can
It's
do
like a drink.
anything. Yeah. You can do
Yeah,
anything.
it's incredibly soothing. People comment or people criticize the self-help movement, including me. Now I do. I certainly examine it a lot, and they say that it is a way of numbing your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like self-help is numbing,
It's just another way. Yeah.
But it's one of the better ways to numb.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, no, it certainly made me feel good. I was certainly excited about these new ways of thinking about life and processing my external world. I became very spiritual. I still am very spiritual. So yeah, it was a game changer. It changed my life, and I think certainly did contribute to my healing. I remember seeing a psychic years ago, and they said that the self-help, the spirituality, one day would actually, like, I wouldn't need drugs anymore. I wouldn't need medication. Not to say that I'm any kind of hero. I don't mean to place any judgment on being on medication and not. It's just that a psychic one day said that there will be enough healing that you won't need,
That was going to be the thing.
need to be on the medication. And so,
oh, wow. And
yeah,
so I want to
here
say
we
thank
are.
you for sharing that you have experienced depression. And because I think that's also very a disruptive thing to start talking about the real shit. And I wanted to ask you, when you did make that transition into, fully committing to speaking and doing those engagements, was there anything that shocked and surprised you about that? As, maybe comparing it to being a comedian, what was different about it? What felt more right for you?
Yeah, immediately felt at home. That's all I can say. I really liked how the environment was more friendly, kind, gentle. Right? I got to do comedy during the day. So like any keynote that I've done, it's always half stand up. Like I'm never going to get up and just, you know, disperse the messages. No, no,
Give
it's always
pearls.
stand up comedy meets whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Inspirational, motivational speaking. And so I just liked how like almost everybody was sober. Um, and yeah, it was a kinder, gentler environment.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just like for me, it just felt more like I was at home. I don't know what to
Yeah.
just. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Now, of course, you asked me like what surprised me. Well, what really also surprised me is how hard I did have to work to win them over. It was just like a comedy club. I mean, they still like you're guilty until proven innocent. Like people at
Yeah.
conferences, they just sit there, right?
Yeah.
And you got to work. The first
Yeah.
5 minutes of my talks, I'm always just trying to get them to like me. But
Yeah.
I got good at that from being in the human resources office.
I was going to say, yeah, probably great training.
Great training.
Yeah. From everybody hating you. And also, it feels like such a great transition from the self-help junkiness that you have to go and be, I mean, what you're doing in those situations is you are motivating people and speaking, you know, truth through comedy. So you're looking at the lighter side of life, right?
Yeah, like I would say pretty much half my mission is just to first tell everyone that I see them and hear them. So the comedy part of my talks is validation. It's like, yeah, I get it. Life is hard. There's a lot of ways life dares us to complain. And so people really feel like that. Yeah, they feel seen and heard in that. And people don't feel as alone with their struggle. And then after I kind of do all that kind of validation stuff, then I go, okay, here's a few things I've learned along the way, or, you know, I've seen repeated in these books some of the great messages that really resonate with me. Yeah, so I mean, you disarm them, you tell them that you get them. I see you, I hear you, and then you offer a little bit of the healing. That's
Yeah.
it. That's
And you
the three
help
parts
people
of being a
laugh at
speaker, I
them.
think.
Yeah, you help people laugh at themselves and the uncomfortable, awkward shit that happens in life and the real, you know, the realness of it. So it's like the vulnerability and everything kind of combines everything that you stand for, really.
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful things is I get people laughing about how they can be their own worst enemies, how, you know, we can stress ourselves out.
Yeah.
Like I think that's really fun because also that really does raise people's awareness about the role they do play in their experience, whether it
Yeah.
is stress or maybe something more comfortable. But
Totally.
yeah. I think
Totally.
it's been a
So
very effective combination. That's what I've
yeah, yeah,
come
it's
to
like
understand.
you found the kind of sweet spot of combining self-help and comedy and connection. And so there's so much here that so many places we can go, but I want to save people wanting more. And I am going to move this platform into a podcast where I will have you back to tell the story about your dad and your coming out story. Um, so, and a lot more other juicy and appropriate things will happen on the podcast. But just to kind of wrap what we're talking about, you know, what is something that people don't know about you or surprised to come to know about you? I could answer that myself because I did meet you on the elevator as my neighbor and then I came to know you, but I'll let you go first.
Like what really terrifies me is like walking into a social situation where there's like a lot of people. I can easily stand on stage and perform for hundreds of people. I have social anxiety. Like I honestly,
Really? I didn't know that.
It terrifies me to go to like a situation where there's going to be a lot of people and I'm going to have to do small talk. I'm going to have to like, you know, work the room, whatever you want to call it, you know, where you've got like, I'm good with my friends, but if you're asking me to like go to like this large family gathering where don't actually remember everyone's name. I say that because there's a big Christmas family event that my partner, has on Boxing Day every year, and it terrifies me. I usually skip it because I just can't take it. I just can't take the pressure.
Wow, that is surprising. I didn't know that about you. That is surprising.
I also hate Christmas. Like that's one of my big truths is I broke up with Christmas a long time ago.
That's relatively depressing. Yeah, that's a whole other story.
Please, I'm a comic.
I didn't know that. I did not know that either. Okay.
Comics are always depressing. That's a truth. I mean, you said something about like me and battling mental illness, and it's like, please, Kate, I'm a comic. That's just like that's part of the job. Fair enough. I don't know. It just seems to go with it, like it's
which is I also think that that's incredibly disruptive. Like you are an individual, individuals who are struggling with one of the most difficult things to deal with in life, mental illness, depression, all that kind of stuff, arguably one of the most difficult things. And then you go up there and you perform in order to make other people laugh and feel good. That is in itself very disruptive because your desire is to be in a shell, probably hiding away. So it feels really powerful in that when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, like I've never been too scared to take the stage. I mean, I'll skip a party or I'll skip that big social setting, but I would never not go on stage. So there's a drive there that transcends fear. But I think the thing is I don't think any healer wants to heal something without already experiencing, that particular struggle.
Yeah.
As I say, healer, heal thyself, right? Yeah. So the therapists of the world, well, they have some struggles there, and that's why they're passionate about mental health or psychological well-being. There's a lot of yoga teachers that will tell you that they were, I don't know, alcoholics and hooked up on drugs or treated their bodies like shit for years, or fitness people will tell you that. I think it's like I have seen the darkness or I've seen the lack of this, and I'm so passionate about it that now I want to help other people.
Absolutely.
So,
I feel that as a coach as well, and I have I have my own history and story, and I absolutely feel that. I feel like that's sort of like you had said something before about, wanting to be of service. And the most important thing is for you to make your client, the people that hire you, happy and feel good about what you are doing. And I think that is the thing, what it's like to be in that place. And then once you sort of figured that out or how to work with that, you want to give that back to people. I definitely feel that very much as a coach, for sure. So if you were to give one piece of advice for people who are, watching and thinking, I want to be more disruptive in my life, what piece of advice would you give somebody working in HR or doing something that isn't making them happy and they're, afraid to take the leap?
Well, I think one of the things, and this comes with age, because I think we did talk about how when you're young, the littlest thing can kind of scare the shit out of you. And that's because we really do have a lack of data. We don't have a lot of, that past stuff that points to, I think, a truth. And that is that everything is in some way progress. Life has a funny way of working out. As Jan Arden says, good things come out of bad things. Like, I think now, if we're talking about adults in this situation, I say, look back and look at all the other times you thought everything was going, to hell in a handbasket, when you thought everything was, just terrible. You were telling yourself that this was, like huge setback, and then also now notice how in some way it really served you well, and that life ended up to be on your side. I just think we have a lot of what I call past data that can really help us trust in these plot twists in life, whether we choose them ourselves or if they happen to us, that everything is going to be fine. It might be a slight test of patience. You might need, to hold on for one more day, as Wilson Phillips says. But just,
it may be a little bit bumpy. It may be a little bit more bumpy than you expected. And that's the thing I find too, is so many people, it's not the way that you think it's going to go down, or you expect it's going to go down? And
I think my story is, I know data. It's proof that life can dream bigger for us than we can for ourselves.
yeah,
So I think life knows what you're good at. I think life knows what you're really interested in. And I think what we need to do is we need to kind of let go of our very limited thinking about how it's going to show up in life, the form it's going to take, the shape it's going to take, right? So life knew that I was going to, love being on stage, might be good at being on stage, but life's like, oh, hold on, hold my beer. We got something better. And so, yeah, just stay very open to how your, passions, your truth can actually take form, manifest.
yeah.
Because,
So keep your eyes open, keep looking around.
Oh, I just think also just know that like life has this funny way of like orchestrating events, situations, circumstances, and even people to, make something happen that might just blow your mind, right? Be bigger, better, more beautiful than you could ever imagine. We're very limited. We're very limited in our thinking about how things are going to go.
Yeah. I keep thinking of like that. What is that saying? Like, jump and the parachute will appear or something, or
the net.
You know what I mean?
The net.
The net. Jump and the net will appear.
I think for those people coming out, jumping out of a plane, I think they need to definitely trust in the parachute.
Yeah.
I think that's where the parachute comes in. But
yeah, because there's no net there.
I just think life wants you to do what you're here to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's the most important thing we can do in this life is answer the call. Answer the call. Yeah. I think
I love that. Answer the call. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. And because we have 5 million other things that we need to talk about, like I said before, I'm going to move this onto a podcast platform where we'll have more time, where we're going to talk about, coming out to your dad and the deal you made with him, and, some other awkward shit that we like to talk about, that I'd like to get live and share with the people. So where is the best place for people to check you out if they want to hire you? Because I know you're doing a lot of the work that you've been doing, not on stage now during COVID, but you're doing it over Zoom. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
My website is susanstewart.ca. And there you've got all kinds of information about actually more of the talks I give, and all that good stuff. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I tweet.
You're on Twitter. Okay.
I do.
Right.
I tweet.
Good. Okay.
I'm really trying to focus on tweeting more.
Oh, okay.
Hashtag goals.
All right.
Susan I. Stewart. I think that's my Instagram too. Susan I. Stewart.
Okay.
Maybe one day people can come to a live comedy show again. That's just a fucking amazing thought right now.
That's
to do that. I know it's going to happen. But those are kind of the best ways to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me on this lovely Thursday. I'm really looking forward to talking more, and I'm hoping that people will send some questions after tonight so that I can ask them on the podcast when we chat.
Sure.
Again.
Yeah, that went by quickly.
It really did. It always does. So yes, thank you, and take care. And I'll
thank you. You take care too, Kate.
You take care, Susan. You take care of yourself.
Don't go changing.
Thanks everybody, and I'll see you soon.